Hi, my name's Keith Cooper of Northlight Images. This is a very quick overview and introduction of a new lens I'm testing from TTArtisan. It is the tilt shift 17mm f4 lens. Now this particular lens, it's a fully manual lens. It is a tilt shift lens 17mm. Now it's very wide. What's unusual about it and what I'm testing here is I've got the version of it that has the coverage and fit and lens mount for this Fuji GFX100S. It's quite a complex lens design. You can see the structure here and that, and I'll cover more of this stuff when I do a proper review of it. But I got this just a couple of days ago and I've taken it out and got a few quick test shots. But I'm going to say right up front, it's, from my limited testing so far, optically it's a superb lens. What's going to divide opinion on this lens is the physical aspects of the lens. Now, it has plus or minus 8mm of shift. That's nothing bad because it's on a medium format sensor. You don't tend to get much more usable on it. Some of my adapted lenses do have more than that, and certainly the Fuji 30mm tilt shift, but that's a lot narrower, longer focal length. This is ultra wide and gives a very wide angle view. Now, in terms, I mentioned a few limitations of it. Yes, it's got 8 degrees of tilt as well. You can't use tilt at the same time as shift on this. You also, and this is potentially a more important one, you can't rotate the lens. So you are limited to plus or minus 8mm of vertical shift with the camera in landscape mode, or 8 degrees of left-right tilt. Now, of course, if you turn the camera around, use it in portrait mode, you've then got shift, left, right, but of course you're taking a picture in portrait mode. Now with a 4:3 aspect ratio like this has got, that's less of a bother, but I can see some people go, no, this doesn't do what I want. If you use ultra wide angle, you use tilt, and you use tilt with, let's say, diagonal shift or something like that, you're going to find that this doesn't do what you want. But let's let's skip over the negatives there, because actually I'm an architectural photographer, and I would say at least 85% of what I would do with a lens this wide, and I have used, and I will be having a look at as well at some point, this is the Canon TSE-17, which you can use adapted on this. Now I've had this since it came out in 2007, used it a lot on various cameras. Adapted on this, it shows its age a bit, and it's something I use carefully. My suspicions, and they are only just that, are that in terms of actual image quality across the field when shifted, this one might even get the edge on this. But anyway, it's got, nearly 20 years of lens design, and lens designs have changed. Now, so it's quite a complex design. Superficially, it does look similar to the Canon one, but the Canon was EF mount, so it has a much larger back focus distance. And indeed, it's that back focus distance which is why the lens mount rotation is not present on this, but is if you get the version of this lens for E mount, RF mount, Z mount. That's because there's more space. The flange distance on this is just a little bit too much to fit that mechanism on here. That's potentially an issue, but this is a lens that is listed at just over $500. That is a big difference, for a shift lens. Now there are other shift lenses I've looked at, wide shift lenses, but this particular one seems very good from a quality point of view. If I look, and these, be very careful comparing these between different makes of lenses because these charts are made in different ways. This is an MTF chart. Superficially, without going into details, it looks pretty good. Right out towards the edge of the field in some areas. Now, reading these is a knack. The problem is different lens manufacturers create them different ways, so you cannot, and if anyone shows you a the MTF chart for this, the Canon TSE-17, and starts making direct comparisons with this, without going into a lot of technical detail, then be very suspect of that. They tell you that there are differences. They don't necessarily tell you what those differences are. But anyway, I will come back to this when I do a proper review of it and actually look at fine detail and things like that for it. But what about some actual photos? As I said, this is only really a quick overview. I was out last night actually at a photographer I know at his an exhibition that he'd got on, and this is right near where I used to live, not too far from where we are now. But this building, it shows a few features of the lens nicely. I've shifted it fully upwards. Now, in terms of shift, in terms of the mechanics of the lens, there is a lock on one side. And there goes the lens, and I'm not sure whether this will show, but that's shifting it up and down. You'll notice I'm holding it. There is no drive to actually adjust it up and down. You have to set it manually. Same goes for the tilt as well. There is a lock, but there is no up-down control just to move it up down. So be very careful how you use it, and you do have to tighten this one up afterwards, because otherwise the weight of the lens at around about 1 kilo, so it's not a light lens, will drop it down. Now it shows these shots, I hasten to add, were shot handheld at a 20th of a second using image stabilization. Now you set, because it's a manual lens, there's no electronics in it, so the camera doesn't know there's a lens there. On most cameras you can set the image stabilization for a particular focal length, so I've set it for 17mm, and it seems to have performed fairly well for it. So always bear in mind, now going out for a nighttime test, shooting these at 3200 ISO, handheld at a 20th of a second, is not really the ideal stuff for a lens review. And sorry to those of you who will dismiss my findings out of hand just because of that, but yeah, I think you can actually see enough about it. It shows very distinct Sunstars, 10-sided Sunstars. They are very distinctive. Now, in this, there are no signs and there's no flare, but the lens does come with a lens hood, detachable lens hood. Comes on. This is something you don't get on the old TSC17. It does, at full shift on this, the GFX, it will ever so slightly vignette. Now I'll do some testing to see exactly how much, but in general this lens hood is a good idea, because the lens is distinctly prone to catching lights. The front element protrudes. The TSC17 is as well, perhaps less so since that has some quite fancy coatings in it. But if you want to buy one of these, it will cost you an awful lot more than one of these. Depends on what you want, what you need. Now that's just a shot with vertical shift there, looking at one. This one, I've looked at some of the details in the top corners here, and bear in mind this wasn't shot on a tripod or anything like that. Focus just using peaking and zoom in the viewfinder, handheld at a 20th, and it looks pretty good. I've processed these because they're at 3200. I use DxO Pure Raw to pre-process the files into DNG files, and then I've just processed the DNG files in Adobe Camera Raw. And this has got it. I've boosted up the shadows a bit and knocked back the highlights, but at 3200 ISO this is not meant to be a critical study of it. Tripod 100 ISO gives you a lot more range to play with, but it works very nicely. It shows very clearly the Sunstars again, and if you don't like Sunstars you are going to be disappointed, because even at the minimum aperture there appears to be, it's f4 on this, there appears to be a little bit of influence of it. Now certainly because I was shooting handheld, and I was shooting these f5.6, detail's great. I expect with a lens like this, if I take this up to f8 or halfway between 5, 6 and 8, we'll see that the detail has improved, particularly at the corners and strong shift. But that's something for testing, not for something like this. That's just looking at that. It's fine. I could see in quick testing no obvious barrel distortion or pincushion distortion or even more complex distortions, which you tend to get in lenses like this, yeah, no real problem with it. I'm seeing minimal chromatic aberration in the images, and I'm noticing not a great deal of difference in the corners in terms of detail. Now, this is only just looking at lights and things here, so there's these are provisional thoughts about this. There's another shot. Now I did two here, one at 5.6, one at f8, just to see if there's any difference. And I've pushed these an awful lot in processing. But this is where the exhibition was that I was visiting. You can see a little bit of flare catching in it, and the lens does, if it's got light on. I'll show an example in a moment that shows that it does flare quite a bit. So you need to be careful to keep light off this. If you've got the sun anywhere near, then this hood is useful. And the very slight vignetting that I believe you get for it, and as I haven't tested this in detail, may well be worth the price for it. But yeah, any lens like this, keep bright lights off the front element. Slightly different. This was just taken at a different aperture of it. Because remember, because it's a manual lens, there's no EXIF data from the lens, so I don't actually know whether what the aperture this was set to or anything like that. If that matters to you, get in the habit of making notes. Something I always intended to do but never ever remember to do. In terms of the actual, using the shift, it is a little awkward, that having to do it, but it's a knack. You get used to using it. And once again, this is one of those things where that is either a fatal flaw to you or a so what. It depends on why you want the lens, what you want to use it for. To myself, in general, I would rather have it like this than a rickety rack and pinion mechanism that was a little bit suspect in its movement or a bit clunky and prone to failure. This is not going to break. This is rock solid. I know people have had problems with the mechanisms. You want to see where the difference in costs between something like this and something like this come from. It is the precision of all the mechanicals here. This has electronics in it. And maybe the coatings as well for slightly different. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, if you want a lens like this, buy a lens like this. Don't whinge that this hasn't got it at a fraction of the price. Find what you like for it, and I'll take it out and see what I can actually get for this in terms of really good quality images. But another shot here, somebody just sitting in the corner here, just presumably checking a phone or whatever. Now, in this one, you can see a few little bits of flare and things. And I say at night, it's going to cause issues like that. Here's a slightly further back shot of it. It also reminds me that the sensor on this GFX is a little prone to hot pixels, and I haven't done a mapping of it for some time, so I need to check that. Further back still, and we've got a few bits and pieces. Now, this was actually the second photo I took of this. The first photo was just with a lamp in front of me, and you'll see the difference from where I'm standing here in this, and the next shot is a few feet back, but with the street light above me directly lighting on the lens. Bang, there we have veiling, flare, all sorts of bits and pieces. Yeah, it's always a problem with big wide lenses, but if I go back, it's quite noticeable, the difference in it. So anyway, there you go. That is a very quick introduction. As I say, it's a stepped aperture. Focal throw, it's reasonable. It goes about 90 degrees, maybe not quite 90 degrees focus throw. Smooth movements, lens looks nice and clear. I see no problems with it, but I'll come back, as I say, to do this. If you've got any questions, let me know. If it works for you, it's likely to work really well. If it doesn't do what you want to do, it will irritate you immensely for what you can't do with it. Purely depends how you use lenses like this. I very rarely use tilt in my on my landscape, in my architectural photography, so the tilt is not really a problem here. But nice lens, feels nicely made, it's a fairly simple lens, even if it optically is quite complex. There you go. Any questions, as I say, let me know, and I will be coming back to maybe a little bit until I get the full. So it depends on the weather, amongst other things. But there you go. So all the usual, like and subscribe, please, if you found that interesting. And I should always mention that I have written a book about how to use lenses like this. My book of tilt to shift lenses that I keep forgetting. There you go. Anyway, bye.